simple mixes here. Going to do lemon yellow because this is a cool yellow. Don't worry too much about warm and cool, but I will tell you about them as we go along. This is a warm yellow, cadmium yellow, more like the golden sun. So one's warm and one is cool. Cool blue, which is phthalo or phthalo blue. Warm blue, which is ultramarine blue. Remember, both of those blues have white in, so we can see what the colour actually is. So when I say the warm blue is ultramarine, that can be very confusing because it's blue, it's therefore must be a cool colour. However, every colour has a bias towards warm or cool. So the yellow, for instance, that's the warm, that's the cool. The blue has a warm, which is nearer to the violet because this has got a little bit of red in it, whereas this greeny blue has got a little bit of yellow in it. Therefore, it's a cooler blue than the one with a touch of red that makes it almost violet. Then we're going to mix these together. So cool yellow and cool blue makes a nice rich green. Of course it could be yellower or bluer depending on how much of each you put in. I've tried to go somewhere in the middle. Now let's do the same thing, but this time with the ultramarine blue and the cadmium yellow, which is much warmer. So we're using the two warmer ones this time. And here we go. The green is very different to the first one. They're still both made with yellow and blue, but there's distinct differences in the end result. So we can try the experiment again using cadmium yellow, which is the warm one, which is the one we used on the last row, and straight next to the cool blue, the phthalo blue, which we used on the top row. So this is a cool blue with a warm yellow. So we haven't done this combination before. It will be interesting to see what happens. So warm yellow and cool blue, interestingly, create a very similar green to our first one, perhaps slightly toned down. That is probably because the phthalo blue is such a strong colour. It's influencing the yellow however you mix it. So now we'll go back to our lemon yellow, which is the cool yellow on the top row. Cool yellow next to a warm red, ultramarine. Any guesses? Here we've got very similar to the warm yellow and ultramarine, quite a natural looking green. So again, the blue has influenced these colours. That one's slightly more olive because of the warm yellow. This is slightly more springy. And if I take these same colours again, so I'm taking lemon yellow and ultramarine blue, change the colours, I've just put much more yellow into it and get a lovely spring green like that. It's essentially the same colour, just a slightly lighter, because yellow is lighter than the blue. Going back to the bright emerald green we started with, if I add some of the crimson into that, which is opposite green on the colour wheel, and then a touch of white, I will make a lovely grey. Greys are so useful in your painting. So that has been made by adding our secondary colour green to its complement, which in this case is a crimson red with a touch of white added. So that plus that equals that. So here's our cadmium red, which is slightly warmer in its colour bias than the crimson is. If I add that to this lovely olivey green, and the red is always stronger, you will find this very quickly. Red will always be very strong in your mixes. So we've got the nice olivey green that was made with a warm yellow and a warm red. If you add the red to it, you end up with almost an umber colour. This has a little bit of white in it as well. That's by adding the green to its complement, which is the red, creating a warm brown. Again, another colour you don't need to have in your palette. If you want to have it in your palette, absolutely fine, but you can easily mix a brown or a grey. I could make that darker and blacker by adding more blue. And you could do exactly the same here. Why does this work? Colour wheels, you have primary blue, primary yellow and a primary red. This you know from early doors. Hopefully somebody's taught you this. If you had yellow and blue, you get green, which is what we've just done. The opposite to green is red. That's called its complement. If you add red to green, you will grey the green down. So if I show you on the colour wheel, add red to green, there you go. Pretty close, isn't it? Okay, we've done some colour mixing. We've made some greens using 2 different blues and 2 different yellows. But I know for some of you that just doesn't add up. You've got a tube of green in your palette and you want to use it. I found the brightest green that I could find that was stored in my cupboard here, and I'm just putting it out. It's quite old, you can see it's struggling to move here. Just got a little bit of water in it. Now this is Rowney and it's called bright green, so yeah, that's pretty bright. And if I was using that in a UK landscape at this time of year, middle of January, you're not really going to believe that that's a UK landscape, are you? So one of the things that we looked at on the original colour wheel video for acrylics was how you adjust one colour towards another. So for argument's sake, if I want to adjust this to become more of a blue green or a yellow green, as on the colour wheel, you've got your blue green or you've got your yellow green either side of green itself. So if you want to adjust this, assuming that it's a mixed green, you want to go yellow-green, you would add some yellow. If you want to go blue-green, you would add some blue. So for my first yellow-green, I'm going to add some lemon yellow, which is that lovely cool yellow that you're used to seeing. And this is what we get. This is a fraction of white mixed in so you can see the colour. So yellow-green, which is my straight out of the tube bright green, added to some lemon yellow. And the next one is a cadmium yellow, which is a warmer yellow, mixed again with that green and a tiny touch of white. Quite similar, maybe a touch warmer green. You can just see it's got a little bit more, I don't know how you would describe it. There's not much difference and you might not be able to see any difference, but to me that's more of a warm green, as this has slightly got more blue in it, so it's a cooler green, and that's because the yellows are different. So immediately we've gone from this zingy green to some quite reasonable, what you would assume you'd use as a spring green or a bright green. So now we'll move on to adding some blues. First of all, I'm going to add ultramarine blue to our bright green. Ultramarine blue is a blue violet and has a bias towards being the violet side, and therefore it has cooled this green right down. Something quite dull, really. A long way from the original, isn't it? Again, it's got a touch of white in it, so you can just see the colour better. And then this blue is the phthalo blue, this phthalocyanin or phthalo blue. And this one, added to the same green with a touch of white, gives you this. Wow, what a difference. Very bright teal colour. I could add more white to that and make it more of a turquoise. Play around with turquoises, a nice colour, but we'll leave it at that. So from that to that, just by adding phthalo blue. So from one tube of green, we've already created 5 different greens. So there's no reason for you to have one tube of green and only paint that green the same way every single time, when you can vary it so easily. And if any of these colours are too vibrant, so if I go back to the lemon yellow edition here, get that same green that I've just used for that circle and add the tiniest amount of a red into it. And I mean tiny, because the red is really strong. So I'll pop that down on the bottom here. So that's this colour with red in. And we've got a really dulled down olivey green. Whoops, got a bit of blue coming through it there. There we go. So red, which is opposite on your colour wheel to the green. Red and green are complements. If you turn your wheel over, you will see a line that says complementary. So if I just turn that line to point towards the green, the opposite is red. So if you add a red in, you will push towards the grey, because green is yellow and blue. Yellow and blue are primaries. They make green. Add the last primary and you start to grey your colours down. And grey is really useful for toning colours down like this one. So that's gone really well. I just used a tiny touch of crimson on that one. I'll just pop that over for you. There you go. Tiny touch of crimson added into the green, and you can dull any green down using a touch of red. Now if you haven't got red on your palette but you happen to have an orange, that will do the same thing because it's near that area. So you could add crimson in, red, orange in, any of those will dull down that green because they're over here and the green's over here. The further away from the green, the more of an instant effect you'll get. So give it a try. So for the last one, this is all I've done is taken that tube green and added the tiniest amount of red, and this is the colour I get. Lovely, almost pistachio colour, look at that. And that is the red toning down, muting the green because it's complementary to it. So that one plus a tiny bit of red plus that to that equals that muted, beautiful, mossy, pistachio, whatever green you want to give it a name. Easy peasy. But believe me, when you first try dulling down your greens with red, you'll probably put too much red in. Red is very strong, so start with tiny, minuscule amounts and build it slowly. So from a very bright tube called bright green of goodness knows how many years old, you can mix 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 greens, and that's before we've even really got going. So try mixing your own greens from blues and yellows. Then if you have a green in a tube, try changing it. You'll often hear colours called mixing colours, and a mixing green is something like a viridian and sometimes an emerald, that sort of thing. And phthalo, cyanine, blue greens, etc. They're not much good on their own, but as a mixing green where you push it towards some other colours, they can be really useful. And some greens are made to be kept as they are, but then you won't learn so much in the beginning. So try and get your most brightest unattractive colour that you have in your palette, and it doesn't matter which one it is, try and push it around the colour wheel. So if it's got red mostly, then push it towards orange by adding yellows, or push it towards violet by adding blues. If you've got a vibrant green, try and make it bluer, or try and make it yellower, or dull it down by adding the opposite. Have some fun, mix some colours. You don't have to do circles, you can do any shapes you like. Create yourself massive colour mixing patterns, and every time you mix something you will learn. One thing to note, although it's useful to write down which colours you mix to make what, please don't worry about the exact amount of paint because you will just drive yourself crazy. We're not doing a maths equation, we're creating art. So by all means write the colours down that you started with so you can remember where to start from, but just be aware that every time you mix you'll get a slightly different result. And there's my gloves to prove we were using bright green. Happy painting. See you on the next video. Bye for now.